When our best fur friends leave our world, many of us are left wanting one last scritch, one last hug, one last walk together. One Last Network is a space for pet guardians to honor their pets in their senior years and to cope with the days leading up to and after their passing. Here's your host, Angela Schneider, founder of One Last Network and Big White Dog Photography in Spokane, Washington.
Hi, and welcome back to One Last Network, and episode 29, The Art of Honoring Izzie with Victoria Chester Rose. Izzie was a French bulldog whom Victoria lifted up into the next realm in February 2021 after a protracted battle with pulmonary hypertension. Izzie was the perfect mix of sweet and sass and resolved Victoria's fear of big dogs. They found love at first smooch. When Izzie was diagnosed, Victoria and her husband did everything they could. They spared no expense to ensure Izzie fought her terrible diagnosis and that she was comfortable and happy. After Izzie left Victoria's physical world, Victoria was left with the feeling she had to do something, anything. She knew that she and her husband were fortunate to make the choices they made for Izzie, while other families are left wondering what to do, thanks to the financial burden some veterinary care can bring. Together, they started the Izzie Fund, which helps keep those families from having to make difficult decisions like leaving their beloved pets at shelters and rescues, or lifting them up because that may be their only affordable option. Victoria shares that journey and what the Izzie Fund is all about today with Jessica Wasik of Bark and Gold Photography in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Have a listen.
Hi, Victoria. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am doing well. We can't talk about the Izzie Fund, of course, without first talking about your one and only Izzie, who inspired this entire journey and the charity and its mission. So tell us a little bit about her.
So Izzie, exactly. She really was. I mean, I know it sounds silly to say, but I feel like she was almost my soulmate. She was just my everything. And growing up, if you ever heard my story, growing up, I was scared of dogs. I think our neighborhood, it was back in the day where it's kind of like dogs ran out of the yard, they chased you. So I was always so scared of some of the bigger dogs growing up. But once I got Izzie, that all changed. She was just like, she was the perfect amount of like sweetness and then had her sassiness too. And so it was just great. And she was with me for 15 years. I mean, it's a long time, especially for a French bulldog. And so to have her with me all that time, I mean, as you can imagine, there's just so much that happens over a 15-year period. And so not only was she there like during all of the fun times of, going on vacation, she was in our wedding. She was in my husband and I's wedding. She was the little flower girl. We got married outside in Maine, and we did that really honestly because we wanted her to be in the wedding and we wanted her to be a part of it. And then, and then she was there during the difficult times too. We had some losses over the years. And so it's just having that constant companion with you.
I can completely relate. I've had Hunter, it'll be coming up on 14 years. And
Oh my gosh.
you really grow up with them as they grow up with you. And the life changes you both go through and you're there for each other. Mm-hmm. It's an irreplaceable relationship for sure.
It is. And it changes you, right? Like you become a little less selfish, you become a lot more caring, and it's just, it settles you a little bit. It's just a different experience. It
is. Give us a high level overview of the Izzie Fund, who it helps, and exactly how this came to be.
Sure. So the Izzie Fund, at the highest level, what we do and what we're trying to do is help dog owners. And right now it is dog owners. We would love to grow it to be, pet parents across the board. But right now it is dog owners, and it's helping them offset the cost of specialized veterinarian care. So when you think of kind of general care, then you think of emergency care. I do work full time, so I can't be there if someone's at the emergency room. And so it really is around your dog has been diagnosed with something that's going to require a lot more treatment than you thought. And that treatment gets expensive really quickly. So we're trying to provide these kind of one-time gifts where we can help them with that treatment and that cost.
I know much of this came from a place of grief on your own. let's talk more about that anticipatory grief that you felt while caring for Izzie, a little background of what was going on with her, and then how that connected to those losses that you experienced in the years following.
Yep. So with Izzie, she was diagnosed. I knew something, so I'll back it up. It was right before Thanksgiving. It was kind of I think it was the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. We were out walking just like a normal, typical morning. She was out doing her thing. She was coming back and she was kind of skipping. And I noticed her skip was becoming almost like she was losing her balance. And then I saw her start to go down. And so I scooped her up, I brought her in the house, and then she was fine. But I knew in my heart, like something wasn't right. So we were able to get into the doctors that weekend after Thanksgiving, and they did all the tests. And then, shortly thereafter, I got a phone call that it was pulmonary hypertension. And at first, I'll be honest, Jess, at first I thought like, phew, like hypertension, like they've got tons of medicine for that. It's just high blood pressure. But I didn't realize it was a serious heart condition. So that's what she was suffering from. And over the next couple of months, she was diagnosed with that on December 1st officially. And then, up until she passed in February, it was honestly round the clock care with her. And it was a lot. And you're right. You start to go through these phases of grief. Like I realize that now, like you start to grieve even before that person or that little being's gone. I mean, you start thinking about it like, you're hopeful and you want the treatment to work, but there is this element of, oh my gosh, she's almost 15, like, and you start really, really struggling and trying to do your best to help them with that kind of hovering in the back of your mind. Interestingly enough, how it did come from a very heavy place of grief. It was probably at my heaviest. I remember the day that we lost Izzie. We came back from the hospital and I just started cleaning. Like I didn't want to see anything. I didn't want to see the medicine bottles laying there. I didn't want to see the food, like all the special food I was trying to get her to eat. I just packed it all up. And I tried it, once you kind of open some of those medicines, and they're expensive. I was having it compounded at that time. So it was liquid medicine. So it was easier for her to take. A lot of places won't take that. So I contacted animal friends, and their veterinarian there had called me back, and she's like, we'll take it. Like, we'll take it all. So I had my husband kind of run it down, and she was just so like, couldn't have been nicer, couldn't have been sweeter, like, in such a sad time. It was probably about a few weeks later, I get a card in the mail, and it was from the Animal Friends veterinarian team and the vet techs, and everybody signed it. And I still remember the message. It said, it was addressed to Izzie. Thank you, Izzie, for helping the homeless dogs. And I just like, for a moment there, I'm like, look what she's doing. Look what she's doing. And she's not even here. Like, it's not me, it's her. And I knew I had to do something.
Yeah, that's beautiful. It's really hard to look back on some of that, just even their toys, their beds, but to have that medical reminder, which was so deeply connected to losing her, yet still finding a way to give back. That's beautiful. And I can see like your face just lighting up as you talk about her and how much it means to you.
Yeah.
Because I know you said it's very emotionally and physically draining. How did that manifest for you?
Yeah, I think for me, the harder, so to back it up a little bit, I had lost my dad a few years earlier, and we lost him to COPD. And my sisters and my mom and I, we were really the sole caregivers for him. He was, I mean, obviously in and out of hospitals, everything, but like we cared for him constantly. We were one of his biggest advocates. And so when she was diagnosed with that, it was really hard. Like, I think it hit me again, like, oh my God, I just watched someone I love so much struggle to breathe and to go through this. And now here we are again. It's like another, I loved her so much, and to watch her now go through this, it was really difficult. So emotionally, I think that really hit me hard. Physically, it was round the clock care. I mean, I am so grateful. Like my husband, he was an angel during this. I mean, she was on, diuretics. So it was like constantly having to go outside, and it's winter and it's cold, and he's, bundling her up and carrying her everywhere. And, we didn't realize how we didn't fall apart from not sleeping. I mean, it was just constantly, every noise you heard, everything, it's just that constant caring for them and worrying for them. And that really does take a toll on you.
Oh, for sure. And that routine too, you have that routine constantly of just caring. And when you don't have that anymore, it's a strange feeling.
So it's interesting, when you talk about like how do you move past grief? It's interesting you say that. One of the most, I think grief is so personal, and you'll hear me say that all the time because I did lose my dad. We did have pregnancy losses. All of those, each one felt so different. And so we could all go through something very similar, but we process it differently. But I talked to somebody right after I lost Izzie. It was probably a couple weeks. One of the neighbors that I'm not even super close with had contacted me, and she sent me a text and she said, I haven't seen you guys outside. Like, is everything okay? And then I told her, what had happened. So she picks up the phone and she calls me and she said exactly what you said. And she said, she told her story of losing her dog, which is like, it was fine. Like everybody handles it differently. But that was the one thing that she helped me. I think that helped me with my process where she said, all of a sudden your routine is gone. And it's just so strange to like wake up and it's gone. And even the sickness part, Jess, like putting that aside, like it's, how it is. You have a dog, like, oh, I got to change the water bowl. Oh, I got to take them outside. I got to get home. I haven't let them out yet. It's this whole routine that you have that's just gone in an instant. And that, I think when I found out, like when I was able to put my finger on it, when she said it, I was like, that's it. Like, that's one of the biggest pieces I'm struggling with is this routine.
Yeah. So what did you find in terms of self-care or any strategies that you implemented that helped ease that loss of routine?
Yeah, so the routine was still hard. That was one I struggled with. I think from an emotional standpoint, one of the things that I did was I started to journal, and I never was one to journal. You always hear, oh, you should journal, write your thoughts out. I found a notebook in my room that I never used, and I started writing in it, but I started writing to Izzie. Like everything was to her. It was, gosh, if I go back and read it now, I mean, it was, the heaviest grief of how much I miss you and, oh, I wish I could see you again and all of that. And then you get moving through, oh, I submitted the paperwork for the charity and I did that. And so it's all these letters. I call it letters to Izzie because that's really what it is this book, this notebook of just a bunch of letters to Izzie to just keep her there and be able to talk to her. And I think that did a lot for me.
I've heard writing can be very cathartic and just a way to release everything, take the guilt away, the anger, the confusion, all of these feelings that it's hard to process at that time.
Exactly.
When we're grieving, so often we have to put on that face of pretending to be okay and to go about those day-to-day activities as normally as possible because, we don't want to make someone uncomfortable. We don't know how they're going to react to our grief. What was that experience like for you?
It was hard. I that was also a very difficult part because for a few reasons. One is, and this is terrible to say, but we've all lived it. Like some people were like, it's just a dog. Like it's a dog. Like, aren't you over this yet? And they don't realize they don't have that special relationship, and they don't realize that it's not just a dog. So you realize quickly who those people are, and you start to pretend like you're fine around those individuals. I think the other thing is, when I lost my dad, I threw myself into my work. Like I just threw myself into my work and with Izzie, and I thought I'd do the same with her. And it wasn't that way at all. I was so absent-minded. I was confused sometimes, like, wait, did I do this? Did I do that? Like I felt so scatterbrained all the time. I really had a hard time concentrating after I lost her. So that was also a different experience that I thought like, oh, I'm going to throw myself in my work. And it didn't turn out that way. So that was kind of difficult too. But you do deal with all these different emotions. You mentioned the emotion guilt. I kind of feel like I had these like 3 major losses right before I lost Izzie. And I know this sounds so crazy, but you think to yourself like, gosh, everybody's been for me through like there for me through all of that. And now here I come again with like another loss, like, oh, like you're like, so you try to pretend you're a little bit better because you don't want to look like here comes Vicky again with another loss, but you're dealing with like, it's just funny how your mind works and you're mindful of some of that too. And so it's difficult, you learn and who you can confide in and who makes you feel better and learning to talk about it is great. I know it's hard to do it, but learning to talk to people that you feel comfortable in talking to is probably the best thing you can do.
for others feeling that same guilt, that weight of having to pretend to be okay, what advice would you give them?
I do feel like I'm going to go back. I mean, I do feel the journaling is good because it gets those thoughts out of your mind, because otherwise they're just kind of rolling around there. So at least it's getting thoughts on paper, it's getting your feelings out. And then again, I think finding a couple people that you can really trust in, that's always really good, that you could trust and talk to, and you know that they're going to make you feel better without you feeling like you're a drain or a burden to them. And then, there are, I wish I had for this meeting, there was a book I found, and it was about grief. And it was specifically, it was a guy who wrote a book about losing his dogs, but he talks about all the dogs he lost throughout his life. And it was very helpful. It's an easy read. It was a short read. I remember reading that out on the porch the one day, and I read it. I'm like, oh, he's so right there. Like, that was so right. I'll have to find it for you, and you can maybe put it, I have it somewhere around here, but that was a really good book that I read too. So I guess finding resources or even support groups that can help you. I think just being able to have a channel or an avenue to get those feelings out is the best.
It seems like you've discovered a way to show yourself a little grace now, which I'm sure was not easy, as grief is no way a straightforward path. How long did that take for you to come to that realization that it's okay to grieve in your own way? It's going to happen differently for everyone, and people are going to react differently.
Yeah. It probably took about a good 6 months. And part of why I pushed myself to get to the point that you just mentioned, where you think like, listen, this is it. I'm grieving. This is who I am. Like, this is what I'm going through, is because I feel like I held so much of that in that it's hard to explain. I have a big family and I've got a lot of people who love me. I never felt so alone than during that period of losing Izzie. I think I just sucked, like I pulled myself inside so much. And I remember one day thinking to myself, I have all these people who love me, like all these people around me, and I feel so alone. And so I think there was the point where it's like, I don't want to feel like that. Like, that's not a good feeling. And when you recognize that, there are people who truly are alone and are lonely. And it's like, I have all these people who love me. Like, why wouldn't I open up to them and tell them how I'm feeling?
Yeah. And grief, I think at its deepest level, comes from how much love we have for someone.
Yeah.
So it's very, very normal, I think, to feel that pain when you love someone that much. And those around you who love you also don't want to see you hurting so much.
Exactly.
How were you able to find empowerment in that grief to create something so impactful as the Izzie Fund?
Maybe I threw myself into that. I don't know. Maybe that was the channel I threw myself into. I do feel like receiving that card from Animal Friends really, it helped me. Like, I'm like, oh, like that little girl is still doing something. Like, she's still saving the world, And I felt like we were always such a team. I always felt that, like, we were just kind of that ride and die team. And I thought, I'm going to give back. Like, in her name, I'm going to give back, and I'm going to help others, because I wasn't able to save her. And, and I knew she was older, but I thought to myself, it was interesting. We were driving in the car the one day, and I told my husband, I said, as hard as this is, I have no what ifs. Like, there are no what ifs. Like, we know we did everything for her. I said, could you imagine, like, that first ER visit that they slide across the table, or the first ultrasound or echocardio, like whatever it is, if you can't afford that and your dog's almost 15, what is the choice you're making at that point? And I said, or if your dog is a puppy and you can't afford that, what then? Like, do you surrender it to a shelter? Like, I can't imagine those choices. And I recognize how fortunate we were to be able to give her that care. And that's where I really felt this calling and this purpose to try to help others.
It's so often that financial impact that really magnifies the quality or level of care we can give to our pets. Mm-hmm. And I know you did not ever want those costs to impact not only Izzie's care, but any other person's pet as well. How are you helping alleviate that financial burden for others who have what you've called a guarded diagnosis? And what exactly qualifies as a guarded diagnosis?
Yeah, so we help pet owners or dog owners with specialized care. But what's different about us is Izzie, for example, her at the end, I said we're going to do all this stuff for her. We're going to do everything we possibly can for her. What's the prognosis? What do you think? And they did say it's guarded, and I didn't know what that meant at that time. And that meant like they really can't tell you. They don't know. They can't say it's good. It's good. And I looked at some other charities who do kind of similar to what we do, more national, and some of them say you have to have a good prognosis. So I'm accepting the guarded because I know what that feels like to have that unknown feeling of like she's still a fighter and she might have it in her and you don't know. And so I really wanted to be able to help people no matter where they were at. But yes, we do up to $2,000 per dog, per household, per lifetime. So if your dog needs care, and we'll probably talk a little bit more about the application process in a minute, but if approved, we can provide that care for up to $2,000.
That is also something that sets you apart, is that application process. What does that look like for someone who may need this type of assistance?
Yep. So on our website, if you look for, if you go to our website, which is the izziefund.org, you'll see a tab there that says request for assistance. I think it says, I should have had it up. But anyhow, you'll fill out a very brief questionnaire from there. But before you fill out the questionnaire, we do show kind of what we cover, what we don't cover, all of that. And then you fill out that questionnaire, it comes over to us, and then you'll have a more detailed application to fill out, just more information. We'd like to see a copy of the treatment plan. And then what happens from there is our board of directors, which is small, there's only 3 of us, but we'll review it and approve it. So once it's approved, then we do pay directly to the treating provider. So whether that's a doctor, whether that's, maybe they're getting physical therapy somewhere, whatever that treating provider looks like, we'll go ahead and cover those costs up to $2,000.
How are you raising the funds to provide that care?
So it started, my husband and I started originally helping out. We put some money into the charity. We do a lot of kind of in what we would call in-kind donations, a lot of the startup fees, but we do rely 100% on donations. So right now, everything we do, whether it's the shirts that we wear, the balls that we pass out, all of those branded items, they're not paid for out of the money that is coming into the charity. So 100% of the donations coming in are going right back to animals in need. So that's exciting. And it's really through a lot of fundraising that we're doing. And then this year we really had this, Jess, we had this kind of 5-step plan where it was sort of, we got approved to the charity it towards the end of 2021. And we spent kind of the last part of the year just, I call it operational setup, getting the bank account open, getting the website up and running, all of those kinds of the bylaws. You have to do a lot of like startup work. Then from there, we moved into, when we launched the charity last March, it was really like our brand awareness phase. So we were out in the community. We were fortunate enough to be featured on, KDKA, Post Gazette did an article on us, Northern Connection did an article. So those were really great features that we were able to get out there in the first, within the first year. But we did move into, and then we moved into accepting applications. That was in the fall of last year. And now we're really into our fundraising phase, looking at donor relations, looking at, could we get corporate sponsorships? What do those look like? Trying to apply for those individual grants as well. And so we're in that phase of raising money really to help kind of get to the phase. The 5th phase is sustainability. So we really want to be able to, get through all of the donor relations and raising funds so that we can get to a great place where we feel comfortable and we're sustaining the charity.
I know this November you ran a huge Giving Tuesday campaign. Tell us what Giving Tuesday is and its special significance to you as well as the Izzie Fund.
Yes, and you helped us out, so I thank you for that. I know you donated
Absolutely.
one of your amazing sessions during that time. So yeah, we had a great Giving Tuesday. It was our first Giving Tuesday. Giving Tuesday is always the Tuesday after Thanksgiving, and it's an international day of caring. And it's interesting because if you were to watch like the Today Show or any of the national shows, you see those massive charities, and they're all great charities, right? But you see the St. Jude's, you see all of those larger, big charities out there. And then you forget there's a lot of little local ones here too, doing some great work in your own backyard, in your own community. So it was really important for us to try to get the word out around Giving Tuesday and having that be a successful fundraising event for us. The significant part, and it didn't hit me right away, is when I looked at, when I talk about Izzie, I always say, I remember the date because it was December 1st when I got that phone call saying that she had pulmonary hypertension. And like I said, I was like, oh, okay. And then, oh no, not okay. But that was, when I look back on that date, that was Giving Tuesday. That was the Tuesday after Thanksgiving. And when I realized that, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's such a special Giving Tuesday. It's almost like a little message from up above, like, wow,
Completely.
like it's our big first splash, and it's on that date, and it just, it had some significance for sure.
For those who want to donate, what is the best way for them to do so?
Yeah, so there's a couple different ways that you can donate. Our website obviously is super easy to go to. There's a section called Lend a Paw, and then there's a donate tab. So you could donate directly from the website. You can also do PayPal. So we're listed out of PayPal, Venmo. And then also, if you ever wanted to send a check, you can send a check. I've had people, especially after the Post-Gazette article was interesting, I got, it's interesting who kind of reads that and sends a check in too. So you can send a check to the Izzie Fund, and that's Izzie. I know sometimes people spell it with a Y. And it's 128 Inverness Drive, and that's in Pittsburgh, PA 15237.
Awesome. Another big date that is coming up is your 1-year anniversary on March 21st. So what are your goals for this coming year and beyond? Do we have any big plans to celebrate?
We are looking to do, there is an indoor dog park in Cranberry. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's huge, and we're in love with the owners. They are amazing. They do not open it up outside of membership. It's a membership, but because of the charity and because of what we do, they are going to go ahead and allow us to rent out that space. And so our 1-year anniversary, even though it is on March 21st, we're going to have a big birthday bash at the indoor dog park in Cranberry on April 1st from 4 to 7. So we're super excited about that. The significance too of March 21st is I launched the charity last year in March, and that would have been Izzie's sweet 16th birthday party.
Oh my goodness.
So I thought, I always used to tell myself, when she was here, I thought to myself, like, gosh, we're going to give you the biggest and baddest sweet 16 party ever. And so I thought, well, what better way than to launch the charity in her honor? And I always say she's the heart behind this charity, and she always will be.
That's incredible. You have so many little signs from her. I don't believe it's a coincidence. Like, I fully believe that there is some special connection that's just pushing all of these amazing things to happen on these special days. I think that is just so cool.
Yep, it is. I do feel like I try to listen, and I try to think, there are a lot of this is faith and just kind of hoping that you're heading in the right direction, and you just keep moving just a little bit at a time. Even if you feel like you're not making great progress, you just keep moving.
As we wrap, are there any final words that you want to leave the listeners with?
I guess I'd say, as you said, obviously donations are great, right? We help animals. We need the funds to do that. We have a few other applicants. We currently have 3 applications that are kind of in play right now. So I'm super excited that hopefully soon I'll be kind of introducing some new dogs into the program, and we'll be able to help some other families and keeping them together. But the other thing too that helps is just the connections. So you and I connected, and that was a great connection. And I could tell you the other day I got a phone call from somebody who I haven't talked to in a while, and he wanted to tell me that he met a very big donor, and this has not resulted in anything yet, but he was talking about how he gives to all these shelters, and he will continue to give to the shelters, local areas. But gosh, wouldn't it be a great way to help? Like, a lot of the animals are because they can't afford the care. And this person who called me said, and I told him about you, and he followed up the next day and asked for your website, and he asked for some of your information. And so he's like, I don't know what's going to happen with it, but it's just all those connections. They really, I will talk to anybody. If you tell me to talk to this person, I will pick up the phone and call them. And so I think sometimes just being an Izzie ambassador and being a champion of our cause and helping like make those connections that could eventually lead to something bigger. That's a great way to help a local charity without costing a thing.
And it all comes back to animals. I feel they connect us like no other.
Yes. Yes. How many times do we know like the dog's name, but not the owner's name?
Oh, completely guilty.
No.
Nothing wrong with that at all, by the way.
No, nothing.
Is there anything else that we did not cover that you'd like to touch on tonight?
No, it's been great. And I hope that you will continue to kind of see more of us this year and really, just ask everybody to kind of join our journey.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all about the Izzie Fund and the amazing dog who led you here. I can't wait to see the even greater impact that you're going to have on Pittsburgh pets and their people who desperately need that financial and emotional support that you provide.
Oh, thank you, Jess. Thanks so much.
This isn't just a story about someone finding the urge to help other pet parents in their time of need. This is a story about Victoria finding meaning in Izzie's life and keeping her sweet babe alive in her heart, holding her dog's spirit and memory so close that she was moved to do something to change the world. Finding that meaning, something I learned about while studying under world-renowned grief expert David Kessler, is foundational to the work we do at One Last Network. The grief training our photographers study has been developed specific to our clients' experience with us. As professional pet photographers, we have a unique opportunity to understand and support you, our clients, in a confusing emotional time of anticipatory grief. And we hope that by creating special memories of you on your last adventures with your best fur friend, we can help you to not only find comfort in those moments, but also to maybe one day find meaning in your own life, thanks to the adventures you shared with your pet. In turn, you help us bring meaning to the lives we lead and honor the memories of the pets we've lost. Next week, I, ever the skeptic, host Nancy Mello, an animal communicator who specializes in talking to animals in their final days. I'm Angela Schneider, owner of Big White Dog Photography in Spokane, Washington, and your host at One Last Network, signing off to go get some Bella snuggles. Listen to One Last Network on whichever podcast platform you prefer. We're on Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Music, and Amazon Music. Don't forget to hit follow or subscribe so you don't miss an episode. If you have a friend who might be interested in our content, make sure you share us with them. Thanks for listening.